Hello everybody, happy Well Book Day to you all. I hope that you're thoroughly enjoying dressing up in your space outfits today and that you're getting stuck into lots and lots of fun Well Book Day tasks and you have a chance today to explore lots of books that maybe you haven't read before. Now, as you'll see in the background here, I've got my moon. The moon is key to the book that I'm going to be reading to you today. So I wonder if you ever look up at the moon and think, wow, people have landed there. Or sometimes you take into account how big our solar system is. I know that some of the books that the other teachers have read to you today are to do with the solar system. And my book is a book all about a lady called Katherine. Now, the book that I'm going to be reading to you today is all about how this lady called Katherine, she managed to put astronauts on the moon. So as I read this book to you today, I hope that you are inspired by her story and you are able to find out a bit more about who Katherine was and what she did and how she really impacted the history of astronauts and how they were able to land on the moon. So I hope you enjoy reading with me today. The book that I'm going to be reading to you is Counting on Katherine, How Katherine Johnson Put Astronauts on the Moon. Now, it's really important when we look at a book that we turn it over and we read the blurb. So the blurb for this book says, the bold story of Katherine Johnson, the extraordinary mathematician who calculated the flight path for NASA's first Apollo moon landing. I desperately wanted to read on as I saw the front cover and read the blurb. So I'm going to open up and we're going to dive into this book together today. Katherine Johnson is the mathematical genius who helped put astronauts on the moon and made sure that Apollo 13 returned safely home. As a child, she loved to count. Boundless, curious, and excited by calculations, young Katherine longed to know as much as she could about maths, about the universe. From Katherine's early beginnings as a gifted student to her heroic accomplishments as a prominent mathematician at NASA, this is the story of a groundbreaking American woman who not only calculated the course of the moon landings, but in turn saved lives and made enormous contributions to history. Let's read on. You can see it. There we go. Katherine loved to count. The steps up. She counted the steps to the road, the steps up to the church, the number of dishes and spoons she washed in the bright white sink. The only thing she didn't count were the stars in the sky. Only a fool, she thought, would try that. Even so, the stars sparked her imagination. What was out there? Katherine yearned to know as much as she could about numbers, about the universe, about everything. Katherine's boundless curiosity turned her into the star student. She was so bright she skipped 3 whole school years. She catapulted right past her brother. He wasn't too happy about that. By the time she turned 10, Katherine was ready for high school. But back then, America was legally segregated by race. Her town's high school didn't admit black students of any age. Katherine burned with fury. She wanted more than anything to keep learning. There was still so much to know. Count on me, Catherine's father told her. By working night and day, he earned enough money to move the family to a town with a black high school. Katherine loved high school. She was good at every subject, but maths was still her favourite. She dreamed of becoming a research mathematician, making discoveries about the number patterns that are the foundations of our universe. In those days, though, there were no jobs as research mathematicians for women. Professions most available to them were teaching and nursing. So Katherine became a primary school teacher. She liked her job and she loved her students, but she never stopped dreaming about exploring numbers. In the 1950s, the US government's National Advisory Committee on Aeronautics, the NACA, hired thousands of new employees. It even started hiring black women as mathematicians. Katherine heard about the mathematician job. Her heart raced with excitement. Perhaps her dream could come true after all. But when she applied for one of the positions, she was told they were already filled. Katherine had to wait a whole year until new spots opened up. Her patience paid off. She got the job. A few years later, the Soviet Union sent a rocket ship into space, launching a space race with the United States. The NACA was rolled into a new space agency, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. Katherine now found herself at the heart of America's space program. She worked as a computer. Electronic computers were not widely used yet, calculating long series of numbers. All the computers were women. They were given the tasks that men thought were boring and unimportant. That didn't bother Katherine, though. She knew that without her contributions, a spaceship couldn't reach its destination, nor safely return to Earth. Here's why. Sending a rocket ship into space is like throwing a ball into the air. At first, the force of the throw sends the ball up, 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 but its energy runs out. The ball's path curves back towards the ground. Where it lands depends on what angle it was. Where it lands depends on what angle it was thrown and how high and how fast it flew. Because maths is a kind of language, Katherine could ask those questions. How high would the rocket ship go and how fast would it travel? Using numbers. And numbers would provide the all-important answer. Where would it land? I wonder if you can sense where she might go next with her thinking and her creative thoughts along with her mathematical abilities. To find out, Katherine plotted the numbers she'd calculated on a graph. When she joined the points together, they formed a curved line. At one end of that line was Earth, at the time the rocket ship launched. At the other was where Earth would be when the ship landed. Katherine's reputation for accuracy and strong leadership skills, she was known for asking plenty of questions, got her promoted to Project Mercury, a new program designed to send the first American astronauts into space. Wow, what a mark in history, everybody. Mercury's missions were going to be dangerous. So dangerous that even the project's star astronauts, John Glenn, refused to fly unless Katherine okayed the numbers. You can count on me, she said. Glenn's spaceship, Friendship 7, orbited Earth 3 times and returned home safely. Glenn became a national hero. There he is. Katherine was promoted again. Now she was asked to calculate the flight paths for Project Apollo, the first flights to the moon. Count on me, she said. On July the 20th, 1969, the Apollo 11 astronauts walked on the moon. Their feat was celebrated around the world. More triumphs followed. Apollo 12 rocketed to the moon in November 1969. Wow, the same year. Amazing. Here we go. Apollo 13 launched on April the 11th, 1970. But on the third day of Apollo 13's flight, the worst thing happened. An explosion in space. Could the crippled spaceship make it to the moon? And if it didn't, would it be able to get back home to Earth? The 3 astronauts on board were in grave peril. Commander Jim Lovell told Mission Control, Houston, we have a problem. Back on Earth, Katherine Johnson got a phone call. Her flight path calculations would have to be done all over again, and perfectly. It would be the toughest challenge of her life. Katherine told Mission Control, you can count on me. She rolled up her sleeves, took a deep breath, and began doing the maths. She worked hard and fast. A few hours later, Katherine's calculations were finished. The flight path to return home would take the ship around the far side of the moon. From there, the moon's gravity would act like a slingshot to zing the ship back to Earth. To get home, the crew of Apollo 13 would have to follow Katherine's course exactly by burning off fuel at precise intervals. If the astronauts made a mistake, their ship would drift through space forever. Katherine waited anxiously to hear the astronauts' report. Finally, it crackled over the loudspeakers. We've got it! Apollo 13 was back on track. Look how happy she looks there. It's amazing. Katherine Johnson had done it. She'd brought Apollo 13 home. She was no longer the kid who dreamed of what lay beyond the stars. She was now a star herself. Here we are. That's the end of our story, but here's just a little bit more information about Katherine. And I hope as I read this to you that it might spur you on to realise that the last page said Katherine Johnson had done it. She'd brought Apollo 13 home. She was no longer the kid who dreamed of what lay beyond the stars. She was now a star herself. I love that last page. Every time I read this book, I really love that part of the story because we're all stars in our own way. We can dream of what we'd love to do and we can achieve those dreams as well. So I hope that it is an inspiring book for you all. Let me finish off today by just reading through the last part of this book with you all. and telling you a bit more about Katherine. Katherine Johnson, born on August 26, 1918, in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. Her mother was a teacher. Katherine assumed she'd grow up to be a teacher too. From her youngest days, it was clear to everyone that Katherine was extremely bright. When she officially started school, she went straight into Year 3. Later, she skipped Year 6. Katherine left high school at 14 and West Virginia State College at 18. Her first job was teaching maths in Marion, Virginia. She loved helping her students learn and encouraged them to learn from one another. I had my students find a buddy and help each other, she said. In 1953, Katherine got a job as a computer. She wasn't a real computer, but her brain worked like a computer at the Langley Aeronautical Laboratory for the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, later NASA. To counter ingrained sexism there, she had to develop more than math skills. She needed to be assertive, as women in those days, assertive and aggressive. Still, Katherine was kept out of the research team's all-male briefings. Eventually, she got tired of answering all the questions and just let me in. Eventually they got tired of answering all her questions and let her in. Spurred by competition with the Soviet Union, the United States ramped up its own space program in 1958, and Katherine became an aerospace technologist when her team joined NASA. By the late 1960s, NASA estimates more than 400,000 people were working on sending a man to the moon. Katherine says the whole idea of going into space was new and daring. There were no textbooks. We had to write them. We wrote the first textbook by hand. Katherine did her calculations on mechanical tableting machines. And by 1961, electronic computers were coming into the wider use. But many people, including John Glenn, who we read about in our story, didn't trust the computer-generated numbers. Call Katherine, she remembers him saying. If she says the number is right, I'll take it. Her role, however, always involved more than mere number crunching. It relied heavily on hunches. By letting her imagination run free, Katherine developed a key backup navigation system that used the stars as guideposts. Katherine's contributions were crucial to America's space program. She calculated the trajectory for Alan Shepard's first flight into space and devised the trajectories for space capsules and lunar landing modules. She co-authored 26 scientific papers, including a groundbreaking report on the theoretical underpinnings of space flight. Later in her career, she worked on the space shuttle and on a satellite project that searched the globe for underground minerals and other natural resources from space. In 2015, Katherine received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Despite her many achievements, Katherine never liked to take any credit. Her reason? Because we always worked as a team, she said. It was never just one person. And that, everybody, is the end of our story for today. I hope that you've really enjoyed reading this story with me today. It really has inspired me, and I hope it inspires you too. So just a reminder, the book, if you'd like to buy it or read it for yourself, is Counting on Katherine, and it's by Helene Becker. Have a lovely World Book Day and enjoy engaging with all of the tasks and immersing yourself in space-themed activities today. Take care, Brushwood, and I will see you soon. Bye, everybody.